Good evening and welcome to ITV News. This is Wednesday night's calendar.
Yes, hello, good evening. Here are tonight's main stories.
Lessons to be learned as a 13-year-old boy is sentenced for his part in Rotherham's riots. We look at the ongoing work with young people to stop it happening again.
No one's falling out with anyone or they all just accept who people are. Don't matter what you look like or what's your age or whatever.
It's no type of, racial discrimination, gender discrimination. We don't have any of that here. We don't really allow it.
As the long-awaited Grenfell report lays bare the failures and dishonesty which cost 72 lives, residents in Leeds say they're still living in potential death traps.
These are not buildings, these are homes. These are homes where people are supposed to live and make their lives, and we're supposed to be buying the safety that comes with that.
In sport, put the champagne on ice. On the eve of a new season, we ask, can the Sheffield Steelers repeat their historic Grand Slam?
And battling the elements, the ongoing fight to save this much-loved stretch of Yorkshire coastline from the sea. But first to the aftermath of Rotherham's riot exactly a month ago, as the youngest person involved in the disorder appeared in court to be sentenced.
It heard how the 13-year-old, who can't be identified for legal reasons, was a willing and enthusiastic participant in the violence, who hurled stones and aimed fireworks at police who were trying to regain control.
Well, in a moment we'll hear from Katie Oscroft in Rotherham, who's been looking at the work being done, particularly with young people, to stop it ever happening again.
But first, let's go to Sheffield, where Fraser Maud, who was at today's court case, is there. Fraser, just remind us what happened that day exactly a month ago.
Yeah, good evening, Laura. As you say, a month ago, the 4th of August, when these incidents took place, this was in the Manvers area of Rotherham, a Holiday Inn Express, home to something like 200 or so asylum seekers, and it was effectively put under siege by a mob of rioters. Over 400 people taking part in the disturbances, over 100 of them with violent intent, according to South Yorkshire Police. The incident lasted over 12 hours. 59 officers were injured, 3 police dogs were injured, and a police horse. About 30 people have already been sentenced for their part in the violent disorder. A similar number, over 30 people, are still to be sentenced. They cover an age range of men in their 60s down to teenagers, and as we've seen today, the youngest of those to be sentenced, a 13-year-old, sentenced in a youth court here in Sheffield this afternoon.
So, Fraser, what did the court hear about the 13-year-old and his part in the violence?
Well, Ian, the boy was in court today with his grandfather and with his mother. He was wearing a blue hoodie, a blue jacket on top of that, and dark-coloured shorts. The court heard that he was filmed by police body camera, lighting a firework, throwing that towards the police lines, picking up stones, throwing those towards officers. At one point, he was filmed carrying a large plank of wood, although it wasn't clear what he did with that plank of wood, but he was certainly seen carrying it. The judge said that his participation in this event was at the highest level. He said whatever was in your reach you threw at police, and that you willingly and enthusiastically took part in this disorder. He fell short of giving him a custodial sentence, but he did say that he was going to give him the longest referral order that he could under sentencing guidelines. That means a 12-month referral order for this boy aged just 13, and that will mean he'll carry out work under the direction of the Youth Offending Service. In the meantime, police still wanting the public to come forward, give them any more information they can, as they're still looking for a number of people in connection with that violent disorder on the 4th of August.
Fraser Maud, live in Sheffield. Thank you.
OK, well, today's sentence was just the latest in a long list following those violent scenes in Wath a month ago. It's been a tough time for the local community, which is still grappling with the impact of what happened.
Well, Katie Oscroft is outside the Holiday Inn where asylum seekers became a target for rioters. And Katie, there's little sign of those terrible scenes now, thankfully.
No, there isn't, Ian. The police tape is still here, but you can see that those shattered windows and doors that were boarded up are now beginning to be repaired properly. But people I've spoken to in this town say whilst you may barely able to tell what happened during those terrifying few hours, you cannot easily patch over the fact that work needs to be done to change the attitudes of the people, including children, who came here to riot. One night of shame, of violence and destruction, 1 month ago. And the morning after that, cleaning up to remove all trace of what had happened.
Looking at the kind of boarded up windows and the fact that the police tape's still here.
Jasmine Richards watched the horror, then came to help repair the damage.
It didn't represent our town and what it was about. It was a bit embarrassing, if I'm honest.
Jasmine's grandparents came to Rotherham from India. She feared for her mixed-race family in the aftermath.
I had to ring them and say, don't go into town, don't go into the place that you call home, because, you know, there could be people there that don't like you and want to cause you some, you know, aggravation.
And as one by one, some who joined the mob attacking the police, refugees and this hotel have been brought to justice, she has another fear.
The people that haven't yet been caught, if they still hold those views, if they're still flying under the radar, not yet been caught, not yet facing any consequences, there's nothing to say that it won't happen again.
The belief at this boxing gym across town is that it probably wouldn't happen again if more young people channel their energy into this. Jamie watched the children who joined in with the rioters and brought this town under an unwelcome spotlight.
They're probably vulnerable kids, and now they've gone to an event that they got excited about. Their adrenaline will have got up. These kids' adrenaline's going to get up tonight by training, but the kids that went to them events, their adrenaline went, so they've had the same feeling, and now that's the way they're going to get their feeling. They've met the wrong people that could lead by the wrong example.
Inside here, no one sees differences, a lesson perhaps to reflect elsewhere.
No one's like falling out with anyone or out. They all just accept who people are and stuff like that. Like, don't matter what you look like or what's your age or whatever.
We're all a big team and we're friends, and I made lots of friends here. When I don't go boxing, I really want to because it helps me a lot.
It's no type of, get me, like racial discrimination, gender discrimination. We don't have any of that here. We don't really allow it.
A different boxing gym, and Abrad Javid finds the age of those involved in rioting hard to believe.
It was just shocking on so many levels, you know, the fact that a place was being burned down with humans inside it, how aggressive people were, and it weren't just men, you know, my age, you know, you're talking about lads, just teens.
He too knows the value of a place like this in bringing people together, countering some messages which may be learned at home.
With so much disinformation on social media, and unfortunately some of the parenting, there needs to be some kind of curriculum around having these tough discussions at an early age.
As some children return to school having spent their holiday inflicting damage here, there are growing calls to tackle how it came to this. Yes, really interesting report there from Katie. We can go back to Katie now. In terms of bringing people to justice, Katie, the police have said that all along they're sending a clear message, aren't they, to the rioters. Do we know how many have actually been brought before the courts? We do, Laura, yes, and don't forget that this is unprecedented in terms of the speed in which it's happening. 118 people have been arrested by South Yorkshire Police. That's 118 people accused of either coming here or encouraging the riots to happen. 33 people have already been sentenced for what they've done, and here's the starkest statistic of all. 5 of them are children. 5 young people on school holiday accused of coming here to riot. That's what's prompted calls for urgent action. Katie Oscroft live in Rotherham, thank you.
On to more of the day's news, and 2 people have been arrested on suspicion of child neglect after a toddler fell from a second-floor window at a block of flats in Chesterfield. The 20-month-old was taken to Sheffield Children's Hospital by air ambulance following the incident at Didcot Close. His injuries are not thought to be life-threatening. A 20-year-old woman and a 24-year-old man have been released on bail.
Well, next, 7 years after the Grenfell Tower fire claimed 72 lives, a landmark report has laid bare a catalogue of official failures and dishonesty that contributed to the disaster.
It found the deaths were avoidable, and it's a stark conclusion, which perhaps makes the most sobering reading for thousands of people living in flats in our region who fear their homes remain death traps. John Hill has the story.
It's a monument to the innocent lives lost, an indictment of failure by governments, cladding and building firms. Grenfell Tower was a disaster, and almost every organisation involved in its refurbishment and management has been found to shoulder some of the blame. But the unsafe cladding scandal Grenfell exposed continues to haunt thousands of innocent flat dwellers in places like Leeds, Sheffield and beyond. People like Rachel.
So this is my flat, and as you can see, when they were doing tests, we saw this from the outside, and it's literally just polystyrene behind a really small amount of render, and we're told that if it went on fire that would just go up like petrol.
So what's meant to protect you would probably kill you.
Yeah.
Rachel can't sell her flat. No lender would grant a mortgage for a potential death trap. Work to make it safe is due in 2 years' time. For now, she relies on smoke alarms and a house insurance policy that's rocketed from £300 to almost £4,000 a year.
I want to be somebody who's going out and enjoying my life. I don't want to have to read reports. I don't want to have to become, a semi-qualified civil engineer by the end of this. It shouldn't be that you have to learn about every single aspect of a building before you can buy in it safely. These are not buildings, these are homes. These are homes where people are supposed to live and make their lives, and we're supposed to be buying the safety that comes with that.
Down the road from Rachel is Johnny.
And obviously it's very important that the work's being done, but as you can sort of see, leaves a lot to be desired.
It's a mess.
It's terrible. The dust that gets everywhere, constant noise and drilling. I mean, we really appreciate it, but it's been going on for over a year now, and there's only so many times you can be woken up by a drill going into your bedside table.
The safety work is vital. Johnny knows that. But it's meant him having to move out of his flat for 10 days when the work was at its most intense.
It's quite a challenge, really, but it's kind of, you've just got to deal with it because it is work that is important, and it's a real tragedy what happened to those people.
As flat dwellers here grapple with their own aftermath of Grenfell, in the Commons today, the Prime Minister apologised and explained what action he'd now take.
This government will write to all companies found by the inquiry to be part of these horrific failings as the first step to stopping them being awarded government contracts. And we will, of course, support the Metropolitan Police and the prosecutors as they complete their investigations.
Back in Leeds, the company which represents the freeholder in the block of flats where Rachel lives says it's committed to carrying out the safety works there as quickly as possible. For Rachel, that can't come soon enough. John Hill, ITV News, Leeds.
And that report into the Grenfell tragedy features on tonight's ITV Evening News at 6:30 with Mary Nightingale.
Coming up in the ITV Evening News, all 72 lives lost could have been avoided as the Grenfell inquiry comes to its devastating conclusion. The inquiry chair rules that for decades residents were failed at every turn. The British Gas customers have been sent hundreds of extra bills by mistake. And more success at the Paralympics with Dame Sarah Storey bagging her 18th gold. Would you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
Thank you, Mary. We will. An inquest into the death of a mother and her 3 children who died in a house fire in Bradford has opened. 2 people have been charged with their murder. Lisa Adlam sent this report from Bradford Coroner's Court.
The hearing was brief, opened by Coroner Martin Fleming, who said he did so with a heavy heart, touching as it did upon the deaths of 29-year-old mother Bryony Goworth and her 3 young children in a fire at their home on Westbury Road in Bradford. He said the alarm was raised in the early hours of August the 21st. Inside the house were Bryony, her 9-year-old daughter Dennisty Birtle, 5-year-old son Oscar Birtle and baby daughter Aubrey Birtle, just 22 months old. Detective Inspector Eleanor Buchanan told the inquest evidence was being compiled into the case. She confirmed that 2 men are due to stand trial for murder next year. A third man, who was arrested on suspicion of murder at the scene, remains critically ill in hospital. Because of the criminal case, the coroner said the inquest would be formally suspended pending the outcome of those proceedings. Lisa Adlam, ITV News, Bradford Coroner's Court.
Well, this is Wednesday night's calendar, and still to come on the programme tonight. Force of nature, the ongoing fight to save this much-loved stretch of Yorkshire coastline.
And look at the expression on Parker's face. Maybe he's seen the forecast for the rest of this week. It's very up and down. It's keeping me on my toes. The latest detail a little later on.
Now, you've probably heard of postnatal depression, or postpartum depression as it's sometimes called. But what you might not know is that it's not only mums who can be affected.
Yes, according to the latest NHS figures, 1 in 10 men will be diagnosed with it in the first year after having a baby. And many of them say that they're not getting the right support.
Yes, well, Catherine Walker spoke to one dad about his experience.
So the lowest point was when I was in the car and fully intended on taking my own life. Oh, and what's this?
With new responsibilities and sleepless nights, becoming a father can be challenging. But for some men like Luke, it can also trigger mental health problems.
I did all of those things. Yes, I changed his nappy and all that and fed him. But I did keep him a little bit at arm's length because I was scared that something horrible would happen to him, and I ended up shouting at my older 2 children over the minorest of things, and you'd be sat in bed that night thinking, why did I do that? And I wouldn't put my finger on that it was because I was upset or because I was depressed.
In Sheffield, members of Steel City Dads say it's time there was more support for new fathers.
I got my 2 weeks paternity leave and then straight back to work. My wife really struggled at first, and there was so much available to help her. But as a man, I think we're just expected to go back to work and sort of let the women get on with it.
In one situation, when talking about, I can't remember the exact course, it was something around baby first aid. I was told this course, we do not want any men present, which is quite an unpleasant thing to hear, and then actually then started feeding into the difficulties I had at the time with mental health.
So Dan, tell us about the outreach this morning.
Some help is available through the services of non-profits like Dad Matters. They work with parents and professionals in West Yorkshire to raise awareness of postpartum depression in men.
I think routine screening would really help us to understand more about the bigger picture for dads and also the impact on their partners and their babies. I think one of the biggest issues is that dads feel like it's a woman-only issue. But we really do need to think more about having a whole approach across the country so that a dad who has a child under 2 can access the mental health support they need to be the dad that their baby needs.
My finger.
Oh.
Back home with his son, Luke is proof that the right diagnosis and treatment can help dads thrive. He now supports other men with postnatal depression and hopes eventually that all new parents will be screened for the condition. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
Now then, let's get a little bit of sport. And the Huddersfield Giants have appointed club legend Luke Robertson as their new head coach. The 40-year-old, who played 228 times for the Giants before retiring in 2016, has signed a 3-year contract to replace Ian Watson, who was sacked in July.
Now, who can forget the incredible success the Sheffield Steelers achieved last season, winning the League, Challenge Cup and playoffs in an historic Grand Slam.
Yes, it was certainly a roller coaster of a year for them. Well, their reward is this season they'll play against some of the Europe's elite in the Champions League.
Their team flew out today ahead of their first game tomorrow, and Arif Ahmed caught up with them before they left.
The Steelers have done it again! League champions for the 10th time in their history.
Last season, the Sheffield Steelers dominated on the ice. In an unforgettable season, they won the league, Challenge Cup and playoffs in an historic treble.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2024 Grand Slam winners.
Now this season, the Kings of England are preparing to take on Europe's elite in the Champions League, where they'll test themselves against some of the world's best.
it's special to be able to go and show what we can do to the rest of Europe. I think sometimes this league gets a reputation for maybe not being as strong as it is, and I'm looking forward to the challenge of going out there and competing and trying to prove that we're pretty good ice hockey players over here.
And that's it, isn't it? Because they play, obviously, it's more high profile in Europe, and England doesn't get the rep of being good at ice hockey.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely some more higher profile leagues out there, but we're excited to show that we're good here too, and we can play with anyone in the world. So I'm really excited for the challenge, excited for our group, and looking forward to going out and competing.
Despite dominating on these shores, the Steelers will be relative underdogs in this competition. They've added 6 new players to the team to give them the best chance of causing an upset.
I mean, you can just look at like some of the rosters on these teams and where these players played and the numbers they've ran at the highest levels. You know what I mean? It's going to be some tough games for us. But I feel like if we stick together, play a certain way, play connected, and play team first hockey, we can give ourselves a chance.
The Steelers have only had 4 pre-season games to get up to speed ahead of Thursday's opening match in Switzerland, around half the preparation time of their opponents. A lot of teams in Europe a little bit further forward than you guys in terms of coming back for pre-season and stuff.
Yeah.
Does that put you at a bit of a disadvantage?
I think for sure. I think I'd be lying if I said it didn't. Only being here for 2 weeks versus playing against teams that have been, at training camp for 4 or 5 weeks now. It's definitely going to put us a bit behind the 8 ball when we're playing them for sure. But I mean, we're ready to go. We got our legs under us, and we'll be just fine.
Coming off the back of the most amazing season in the club's history, they head for the continent with no fear, as the Sheffield Steelers look to create more special moments. Arif Ahmed, ITV News.
Yes, good luck to the Steelers. Now, the way we're dressed tonight, Laura, anyone would think it was autumn.
Well, it is, isn't it?
And Kerry's joining in too, look.
Oh, it's sort of going to feel like that by the time we get tomorrow. Yeah, we might be looking at it and might be looking like it outside the window and outside the studio too. Just want to show you a couple of photographs of the North York moors from the weekend. Of course, we had very warm temperatures by day and clear skies, but cool by night, and it allowed the mist and low cloud to sit in the vales and valleys almost like a basin. Absolutely dreamy there. Different kind of cloud though as we head through into tomorrow. Autumn is one of my favourite seasons, but I don't think I'm going to win any friends with tomorrow's forecast. Our winds, which will be quite strong, are coming in from the east. They're going to drag a lot of moisture in off the North Sea. So low cloud is the question, and a big question mark about how much we'll get over the coastline and over the North York Moors and the Pennines, and of course the Derbyshire Hills as well. So there could be a lot of low cloud, and also the humidity is quite high. We've got what we call a quite high dew point, so the air is quite saturated. So that means that the low cloud could just sit all day. So that's not very joyous, is it? But there will be some joy in the forecast, I promise, a little later on.
Okay, thank you. Finally then, to the ongoing battle to save one of our most vulnerable stretches of coastline from the ravages of the sea.
As land around Filey has famously been eaten away by the waves for years, and over the last century almost 30 metres have been lost in parts.
But now, months of building work is beginning to bolster ageing sea defences and protect homes and businesses there, hopefully for decades to come. Michael Billington reports.
Along the fastest eroding stretch of coastline in North Yorkshire, a Victorian seawall that's been protecting Filey for decades, but which itself is beginning to show its age.
So we have got a number of structural issues with the wall. We're looking to replace blocks, steps, slipways.
Up to £1/4 metre of land is washed away every year, and so now a multi-million-pound project stretching 1 kilometre along Filey's sweeping sands is about to begin to protect the town from the ravages of the sea.
Filey is vulnerable to the effects of coastal erosion. It's an ongoing and increasingly difficult battle to make sure that the town is protected from the sea. We're losing on average about 1/4 metre a year. That's why the seawall plays an important role in protecting the town. That's why we're making this very critical £3 million investment.
The work to repair the sea wall should extend its life by half a century and protect up to 800 homes and businesses.
As you can see, we're only a matter of metres away from the sea wall and from the sea defences, and some of the other businesses are set back a little bit further away from the sea wall. We're right on top of it, so anything that goes wrong with this will directly affect us.
It's very important. It's wonderful for the longevity of Filey, the businesses down here. If you've got a business, obviously, or a property on here, so much so, but obviously it's protected where it needs to be, the main bit. They're doing it at a good time over winter, so it doesn't impact the businesses as much as it would, obviously, in the season.
The work's expected to take 6 months, but the protection it provides for one of Yorkshire's favourite tourist spots against the power of the waves should last for decades. Michael Billington, ITV News in Filey.
I love a trip to Filey.
Yeah, great, isn't it? Any seaside resort
Actually,
is fun,
yeah,
I always think, don't you?
Yeah, I just feel that it's sort of got that old-fashioned feel to it. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, what's it going to be like if you go to the seaside? Here's Kerry with the forecast.
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Thank you. Hello again. Yes, sunshine at a premium across the region today. Benjamin says, is this shot any good? Yes, it absolutely is. Taken earlier on in the week. Absolutely beautiful of Digley Reservoir above Holmfirth. Not as pretty today. We have had some breaks, yes, but we've struggled with cloud amounts. We've had one system pushing its way eastwards and then stalling to eastern parts of the region, and then cloud catching up with that with some sunshine, but also 1 or 2 scattered showers. Now, everything tonight is moving back west-southwestwards, so we see an increase in cloud once more. Showery outbreaks, which could merge to longer spells of rain as we head into the early hours, and a lot of low cloud, the humidity rising, as well as those winds gathering strength and coming in off the North Sea. So a pretty unsettled end to the night and really quite blustery as we head through into Thursday. 6:23 and 7:45 are your sun times for tomorrow. So showers or longer spells of rain first thing, a cloudy damp start, misty and murky over the Dales, the Pennines, the Peak District and the North York Moors. Some dampness here, some rain and drizzle around at times, and also low cloud in the North Sea coming onto the coastline at times. Elsewhere, perhaps lifting and thinning a little bit that cloud, but generally an overcast day and pretty warm and humid despite those winds coming in quite strong from that north-northeasterly direction. And everything thickens up as we head towards the evening, so another misty and murky and mild night. But we are hoping for the drier and clearer conditions, at least for inland areas as we head into Friday. And mostly dry but cloudy as Saturday, brighter but with some heavy showers for Sunday.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
There you go. Very on and off, very up and down over the next few days for sure.
Yeah, that covers all bases, doesn't it?
I was just thinking that, yeah. That's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow night at 6.
Yeah,
Good night. See you then. Bye. Bye.